Okay. Let me know once you can see my screen. Guys, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so welcome everyone. So we would be today covering the overview of the BW6 and BWC sessions that we are going to perform, and on the overview we'll cover like what topics will be covered, what you would expect, and how long the course will be, and like any other doubts that you may have, we will address that. Okay. So before we start, like a brief introduction of myself. So I'm Obro, and I've been working for more than 12 years in the IT industry, and all that 12 years is in the Tibco BW suite of products. So I worked in Tibco BW 5, then 6, then the container edition. Apart from that, I'm working on some of the cloud products. So all in all, mostly I've worked on Tibco products itself, and also I hold multiple certifications, active certifications from Tibco. Okay. So about the course basically. So like we will cover the course overview first. So basically like what from like this will be our my 14th batch. So in this course what I have come to know is like most people usually have like at the very basic level they have like certain questions we face. So I will try to answer those. Apart from that, if you have any doubts or if you feel anything you need to know, please feel free to stop and ask me. Okay. So I always encourage this interactive mode. So like whatever you feel anything, any questions you need to get answered, please feel free to stop me and ask. Okay. So overall, speaking of the course, like what we do is we have a combined course. So combined course in the sense that we cover like the BW6 as well as the BWC development part together, because like if you see in the latest version of the products as well, the studio version of both the products, the content edition as well as the BW6 standard studio, the Eclipse version is the same, the studio version is the same. So that's why development wise there is very minimal changes. So 95% you can see, you can like say the development effort and the development perspectives are the same. So what we do is like initially we take up the development part, we go into the deep dive into that in different concepts, and like learn the concepts as far as possible in a hands-on way. Okay. So since the development of these 6 and 3 are like on a very like similar levels, so we covered that together. Okay. So once we are thorough with our development trainings, we then move on to the admin part. Okay. So in course of the product, like we develop hands-on codes, which I keep sharing with you, and also like you will receive the different slides for each of the classes, which you can refer. And apart from that, like for each class, there will be a live recording. Like for example, this overview session is also being recorded, so you will receive like once this session is ended, or like for each and every class that you attend, you will have like that recording link that will be provided to you, which you can access. Okay. So, and apart from that, apart from these three means of interaction, if you need sometimes, like sometimes what happens, what I've seen is, like we may be like in the midst of the course, and sometimes some people may have some interviews coming up. They may get stuck on something in the project itself. So, like for that, like if you need some urgent help, you can get in contact with a Visualpath, and they would reach out to me. Okay, so I would be like not every time, like not always I would be available, but like mostly, like if you have any urgent requirement, you can get connect with Visualpath, and like I would try to help you as much as possible. Okay, so like it's like more rather than me like covering the entire course based on the schedule that I have, or on a based like on a like predefined course format is also like tailor-made based on the group's requirement. So I will have the slides I have prepared. There would be around say 30 slides for that entire course. So based on that slides, basically like we will have a basic guideline. But apart from that, there may be some ad hoc requirements coming in, or maybe the like, students in for their courses for their actual project work may need something else. So whatever you need, you may request me, and during the course, I would try to accommodate that. Okay. So as far as possible, like if it involves like Tibco itself, like say you want say some extra hands-ons or in-depth learning, or like for some of the Tibco concepts which can be based on Tibco Studio, then definitely I would create them. I create those hands-on and will discuss in class. If say the requirement includes involves say certain components which are like licensed components, say something of the AWS component. So I may not have that. So if that is the case, that will be like that won't be possible. But even in that case, I would try to like get you and prepare a material that is at least you can go over it and have a theoretical understanding. But for all the typical concepts, whatever you have and whatever doubts you have, we will definitely create hands-on for that. Okay. So we'll cover that the core concepts and follow up with the corresponding hands-ons. Okay, and we will have like one or two hands-on POCs. Like I would give out some problems, and you have to like prepare that solution architecture, and we will discuss that in class. Okay, so we'll review it together. Okay, so till now, any doubts? Okay. Another thing is we like for the duration of the class, it's mentioned 40 hours. So 40 hours is like a standard benchmark. But what I've seen is like say as I mentioned, like ad hoc requirements from students keep on coming. Okay. Also may sometimes in between the courses, what happens is we have some Tibco drives going on where like Tibco has those certification drives. Okay. So if that comes up, then we like dedicate a little bit of time for that preparation. So like the objective of the course is not only to give you an understanding of how Tibco works, both theoretically as well as practically, but also if you are interested to prepare you to appear confidently and clear the certification exams in a single go. Okay. So apart like on that context, so like once we are done with the course, I would be anyways and like handing out sample questions taken from the previous year's certification exams, which I think should help you clear the exams easily. But like even without those terms, we covered the concepts in detail. That is like even without the questions, you should be able to clear that. Okay, and we had like multiple instances of such achievements like in few of the last batches where like multiple students like in between the courses they got they appeared for the certification exam and cleared both the 6 and C exams in a single go. Okay, so like we will cover concepts in those level of details. Okay. And like for the course, like as I mentioned, like 40 hours is a standard benchmark which we try to follow, but as like ad hoc examples, ad hoc requirements keep coming, and sometimes I may need 1 or 2 days to like create some like custom POCs to make you understand the concept. So those things sometimes may take time. So we may exceed that 40 hours maybe by a certain limit. But as I mentioned earlier also, like whatever is required by you, unless and until like we cover that, we will not end the course. So like it's as I mentioned, like it's not basically me going over like rushing through the concepts and going over the predefined curriculum. It's basically whatever you need, whatever time you need to understand. So we go by that. Okay, so 40 hours is only a representation. It may be around 40, like average batch is around 43 or 44 hours of classes. Okay, and we have classes on from Monday to Friday. We don't have any classes on Saturday and Sunday. So I would be handing you those slides and whatever POCs we do in class. So like you can go over them over the weekend, and whatever doubts you have, you will like if you have any doubts, we will sit together and clear those doubts. Okay, I would try to like clear those doubts and help you in any way possible.
Okay, so what will be the classes time?
Yeah. So class time usually like we have now is from 8:30 to 9:30, but like sometimes we have people from on-site joining in. So if it's late for them, then we can have from 8 to 9. So 1 hour duration from Monday to Friday.
8 p.m.
No,
evening.
8 a.m. in the morning, Indian time.
Oh, so because 8 a.m. we will be in office.
Okay. Yeah. So
Because
okay, you can
if
discuss that with Kiran Maya or Visualpath. So like based on everyone's comfortable timelines, they can like select the time. That for me particularly, like it will be difficult in the evenings because like I work on the US shift and like from the evenings I'm like totally occupied till 8 hours. So like morning anytime would be possible for me. I'm like not sure if I can accommodate in the evening, but yeah, let's like uh, Path will take a call on that.
okay, okay, okay.
Okay. Okay. So another thing, another point I wanted to mention was like this point, the zero familiarity. So like in course of my batches, like what I've seen is like people joining from different backgrounds. Sometimes like we have experienced candidates who like have multiple years of experience and some experiences in BW stack of products as well. Some people who have like no familiarity with Tibco but have some prior experience, and some people who are freshers, okay, fresh out of college. So we have even have instances who have like for freshers who have like just out of college and they join the Tipco batch like because the Tipco market is going strong. So we have even like those candidates joining our batches and like those people like after the batches they were successfully able to like land Tipco jobs. One person I know actually landed in Tipco itself. Okay, so like what the bottom line of that is, like we assume zero familiarity with the BW6 and C concepts. So even if you are like not from TIPCO background, that won't be a problem for you. So we will cover like each concept will start from the scratch and we'll cover that from bottom to up. Okay. So in any stage, if you feel any issues, let me know. I will go over the concepts any number of times unless you are satisfied. Okay. So that won't be a problem in even if you are not from the TIPCO background.
So, Amita, here I have one doubt. Can I ask here? Like,
Yeah, sure. Go on.
hello. So basically, like as I understand, it will be like hands-on based. But in terms of like in real-time scenarios when we work on the
Uh-huh.
project,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like combined concepts, right? So, do we have that kind of model where we cover at least one project where we are triggering flow from, let's say, some the data is flowing from the website, which is a REST-based API, and then
Mm-hmm.
we are capturing it, and then it is flowing through either to the data is flowing through either this Salesforce or any other system. So, do we have such kind of hands-on project as well? Like,
I understand your point. So, like, what we can do is the first one that you mentioned, that is the incoming method request format, that is coming from the website. So, in case we want, like, we can replicate that. We cannot, like, don't have a website to trigger the data, but we can do the next best thing. That is, we can trigger the data if it is SOAP-based services. Then we can trigger it from the like SOAP UI or any other client. If we like want to test for the REST-based data, there is REST services we can create from Postman or any such collections. So we can replicate that. That for the target system for Salesforce, that will be a problem because like we do not have any other licensed products with us other than Tibco. So like we can like whatever we can do with the open source things like the SOAP UI or from the Postman, we can do and replicate those scenarios. but we can definitely
kind of
try.
replica. I do
Yeah,
understand that it is very difficult to replicate because the integration is
right.
difficult to replicate the industry standard project, but at
Yes,
least the flow that we will build in the Tibco,
right.
that should
Definitely, that
like
could be done.
from this training we should be able to,
Mhm.
at least be able to work from the day one, like.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. Like we will model our POCs in such a way that you can like what we will try to replicate as much as possible whatever scenarios we face in the real-time project. Okay. So like triggering the
Mm-hmm.
projects, the data from say the SOAP UI or for the postman, we will like orchestrate the data in our Tibco layer so that like exactly how we do in the project, and we'll send out in a
Mm-hmm.
specific format. So that
Mm-hmm.
thing you will like get a like front row
Mm-hmm.
understanding. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And yes.
Okay,
So that
so
like definitely we will do.
okay, one more thing.
Yes.
So in deployment part, are we setting any pipeline or we are just going the standard way of deploying, like through
Okay.
Jenkins and then triggering,
Right.
having the source code on the GitHub and then, pulling out and then creating a build out of that, and then, at least what is the deployment model we are going to follow over here? Because most
Okay.
of
Yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
projects they are going this GitHub, and then at least they are
Exactly.
automating up to the triggering the build, like, you know.
Correct. Yes. So yeah. So that's a very good point. So how we do it? Let me just explain. So for when we cover the administration part of BW6, okay, we will take that up in a different way, like because the admin part is different for 6 and 3. So first of all, we take up the BW6 admin part. So in BW6 admin part, apart from the application deployment, you need to set up that entire infrastructure. Suppose you work in a project where, like, say, you have been tasked with developing the infrastructure as well. Like you have been provided a server, okay, a blank server, and you have to install whatever components are necessary before even creating the ER and going to the deployment stage. So what we'll do in BW6 is, since it is like that with it's like the TA that is covered within the Tibco license. So we have that software. So what we will do is we'll set up that entire structure from the command line as well as from the THUI. We'll create the like requisite components like domains, app spaces, app nodes, everything, and then we will deploy. Now coming to the deployment part for BW6, if as we understand, like most of the projects, they are now automating the deployment, like they're triggering the CI/CD pipeline. But the CI/CD pipeline would actually, what it does in the background, it calls, it's like has those command line calls, which basically use the Tibco utilities to deploy. So what we will do is, since we have that entire Tibco product at our disposal, so for the BW6 part, we will deploy it manually. Like we will use the command line interface to deploy, and also we'll use the TA to see how we can replicate the same thing. Okay. So for that, for BW6, if I use the like CI/CD pipeline, then what happens is all these things, they are like shielded. Okay, so you only get the view of how the CI/CD pipeline works, but that doesn't enhance your understanding how actually Tibco utilities, which are there in the background, how they actually work. So what we will do here is, for the learn for like better understanding and learning, we will use the manual mode of deployment for BW6. Okay, and manual mode includes both the command line as well as from the TA. Okay, so that is for the BW6 part. Now coming to the BWCE part, so that is a tricky thing. Again, like we know, the industry goes with the like automated solutions. So what we will do here is, since like most of the projects now are going in BWCE, and you have to understand the automated parts. But at the same time, as I said, like in the background, whatever utilities are going on, we like do not get to see that as developers. So what we will do is, partly we will like take one cloud platform, say the AWS, and we will see what is the manual mode of deploying that application, that BWC EAR, into that particular cloud platform. Okay, and for that we will need some underlying like um, extra concepts apart from Tibco, like say Docker. So we'll see how we can create the Docker images, what are Docker based images, how we create them, how we create the application image, the Delta image, and then how we push that image into the cloud platform. So that part we will do manually, because that is something you need to understand, and that is something which on which you are asked questions in the interviews as well. Okay, but keeping in mind, as the point that you correctly raised, that most the projects are like more and more relying on the automated CI/CD pipelines for deployment. What we will do is I do not have that license for Jenkins, but I have like the step by step screenshots and a detailed document created, underlining the points, what we need to do, what changes we need to make for like deploying the code in checking in the code in Git, and then using the Jenkins pipeline to trigger the build from Git into the cloud platform. Okay, and in that process we'll also cover like not only this deployment part. Once the deployment is over, for the managing and monitoring of the cloud applications. Okay, so the industry uses another very popular orchestration layer, which is called the Kubernetes. Okay, the Rancher Kubernetes. So what we will do is, for Rancher Kubernetes also, we will see like even then like I do not have that license, but I have those screenshots and like documents created, which will show you step by step how to work with Rancher and how to monitor and maintain your applications once it is deployed on the cloud.
Yeah, that sounds good, because then I can try out at my end, and like anyone else can try
Correct.
out then if they had documentation. Yeah,
Yes.
that answers my questions. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. Okay. Anyone has any other doubts? Please feel free to ask. And thanks, Amita, for like bringing out a very important point.
I'm good.
Okay, then we will move forward. Like, if you have any doubts, as I said, like you can anytime stop me and ask. Okay. Now, on a very high level, like we will see, like I am assuming, like even if you have some prior experience in BW, like Tibco suite of products, or in BW6 maybe, I will still like take the opportunity to start it from scratch. So on a very high level, like why we rely on BW6, and why as BW6 as a product is getting traction in the market. Okay. So initially, like the scenario was not like this. Okay. So I'm talking about around 2014 or 2015. Okay, when we actually started working in BW6. So I've been working since 2015. So at that time, the BW6 version was 6.0 point something. Okay, and the C version was like 2 point something. Like nobody used BWC at that time. Most people were interested in BW6. Okay, and that version of BW6 is like was way different from what we have today. Okay, so the main reason why Tibco, like at that time, Tibco's market was like Tibco BW market was very strong with the BW5 product. Okay, it was around 5.9 or 5.10 at that time. So that was Tibco's like flagship integration product. So why did Tibco suddenly switch to a new version? And like new version means like entire thing was different. The UI was different, the way things work, everything was different. Okay, so initially like people were like uh, worried to try that out. And also like at the initial stages, the product was not at all stable. Till 6.3 came along. Before that, the product was not yet stable. So I have like development experience in 6.1 and 6.2, and that was like really horrible. So, like, still, why Tibco suddenly took that big decision to move from that their niche product into something of like based on the Eclipse? Okay. The first and the foremost reason for that was that the integration market that is like very volatile and very dynamic. Okay. So we have like initially when Tibco 5 was in force, the traditional mode of deployment was on-premise. Okay, that is like clients they used to have their own data centers in their own premises, and like they would set up the several servers, dedicate some for Tibco, some for other technologies, and they would have those applications running there, and they would have dedicated team maintaining those servers. Okay. Now, slowly, like as the cloud market gained traction, and AWS was the first one to gain traction, as the like cloud market gained traction, we like there were some clients who tended to shift from like the traditional model to that cloud-based model. Okay, But initially the shift was like very tentative and like the traffic was very low. Okay, so with that like migration, like to keep that migration, like to tap in on that migration, what Tibco did was Tibco wanted to have a product like BW5 did not have any like uh, capability to work on the cloud. Okay, so what they did was they released two similar products. Okay, one was 6 and one was C. 6 was the flagship product, which was like a upgrade of the BW5 version, and it was meant like initially that version like 6.2, 6.3 on at those times. Initially, it was meant only to work on BW6 for deploying on-premise. Okay, that is, Tibco wanted the clients who were already on BW5 platform to upgrade to the BW6 platform, which would be deployed in a very similar way, that is on-premise. So there was like no leap of faith for the client. Okay, and for that little amount of traction which was going towards the cloud, they introduced the C with a very similar UI, very similar concepts, but which was to be used exclusively for deploying codes and applications on the cloud. Okay, so I mentioned exclusively because initially these two products, even though similar, were completely separate. Okay, there was no like overlap between them as far as their functionality was concerned. Now, the main reason for like, if say like when we talk of upgrade, like from say BW5 5.10 to BW 5.12, it's a simple upgrade. You just open the code in a new new designer, and your code is automatically upgraded. Okay, that was not the case in 6. It was like, even though it sounded like BW5 versus BW6, the platforms and the like backends or like the base code was entirely different. 6 was like 6 and C was totally Eclipse based, and 5 was BW's Tibco's proprietary product. So the main reason, like my upgradation or migration was never going to be easy. Okay, because it was two different platforms. But why did still Tibco like want to take that step? The reason was that Tibco was losing market, and at that time, like there were other integration products which were gaining market traction. For example, MuleSoft, it was getting a lot of market traction. The main reason for that was like most of these integration products, they were Eclipse based, and Eclipse is the standard development SDK for that entire industry. Since Tibco product, like if say I am a Java developer today, if I wanted to work on BW 513, I would have to get familiarized with the Tibco designer, then see how it works, and then start working on that, right? Compared to that, if I am a Tibco Java developer and I switch to BW6, I would see that yes, that is a still familiar Eclipse, and I would readily start like working on that. Okay, the learning curve would be much less steeper. Okay, so with that industry standard, like keeping that standard in mind, Tibco shifted that development studio from the that restrictive one, that is like the proprietary one, to the industry based Eclipse standard. Okay, and introduced a much more like since it was Eclipse basically, so Tibco automatically got support of much enhanced Java like support for the for implementation. Okay, so it was very limited as far as comes to Java implementation or Java code implementation in BW5. So Tibco automatically like overcame that problem because it was using the Tibco Eclipse in the background. Okay. So Eclipse in the background makes the development like as a standard format. With that in mind, Tibco wanted to like keep the functionalities more or less similar. So if you see the product, the activities and the activity blocks groups, those are more or less similar to what we have in BW5. So if you are a BW developer in BW5, you would have little time, like you would definitely want have to like get familiarized with the new UI and all. But the core things, the core concepts, they remain the same. So as a Tibco developer also, you do not need a great leap of like a great learning steep curve to like start working on the BW6 and C. Okay. Now, when it comes to that C platform, so Tibco, as I mentioned, they like introduced that with the idea that only that to tap into that little bit of traffic which was migrating to the cloud. In course of time, that traffic, that trend, that became a major trend, right? So clients kept moving to the cloud, and Tibco was losing the market share again because it was like primarily initially focusing on BW6. So what they did was from 6.5 onwards, okay, till 6.4, both the products were entirely separate. From 6.5 onwards, they introduced a composite product where we have the concept of the deployment target. Okay, so the deployment target, what it does is like that basically allows you to choose your target on the or like choose the selected platform where you are going to deploy your application. Okay, so initially, if say you are working on like say you are working on 6.3 version of the code, okay, of BW6, you develop your code. Now, say midway, your client says, no, we are not going to use on-premise, we are going to deploy it on cloud. Okay. So there are two ways. One way is the client purchases a cloud VM, sets up that Tibco server there, Tibco installs Tibco there, and you deploy the BW6 abstract and approach, everything you create on the cloud and you deploy there. Okay. You still get to keep your BW6 code, but if you like want to deploy the Tibco code as a container running on cloud, then BW6 will not help. So what you would have to do in that case is you have to recreate that entire code in BWC. Okay, there was no way you could have like used the existing functions in C and then created the year out of it. Okay, you have to like then the development effort would be much higher. Okay, because you have to recreate everything. To like mitigate that problem, what they did was Tibco did was from 6.5 onwards they use this composite product where you have this deployment target which you can set to app space, container or Tibco cloud. Okay, and based on that, your like basic format of the code remains the same. Suppose you started working in BW6 Studio with the deployment target set as app space. Okay. Let me open the studio and explain.
So here now we will
Yes. Yeah, sir, we lost you. Can you come again?
yeah. So now we will have single IDE, this Business Studio for both BW6 and BWCE development.
No, the studios are still different, but I will show you like we have this concept of deployment target using which you can use the same code in both the studios. Okay, let me just explain. So this is a BW6 studio that I have opened. Okay, this is 6.5 version. Okay, I'm still using this one, but we can like go and like use the 6.7 as well. Okay, so if I create a basic BW project here, so we'll come to these details later, like what is the application module, how we use that, on those things. Okay, that will come as main part of the main course. So here, suppose I create this project. So the deployment target is by default checked as app space. Okay. Okay. So this project is created. See, the project is defined as app space. Okay, the deployment target. Now, suppose I complete my development in this format. Now, midway, my client comes and says that no, we want to deploy on cloud and as a container. Okay. So if that is the case, then like in the older version, I would have to recreate the entire thing in a BW6 studio, C studio, right? Now, what I will do is I do not have to repeat that development steps again. Okay. What I would do is simply after the development is completed or at any stage during development, I will go to this refactor, not refactor, configure, sorry. In the configure, we have the configure deployment target. Okay. So I can simply change this from AppSpace to any version that any deployment target that I declare. So this container is when we want to deploy our application as a cloud container. Okay. And this third option, this is for deploying our application as a container on Tibco cloud. Okay. And this first one, AppSpace, this is for deploying on-premise in TEA. So based on our requirement, we can change this deployment targets any stage. And based on based on whatever changes we make, what will happen is the development part that will still remain the same. So we have for each project we have two parts. This part is the first part is called the module, which basically contains our development part. So we have the processes folder here where we define the processes, then the different resources which we define schemas, etc. So everything here concerns the development part. Okay, and this dot application, this is responsible for creating the EAR. Okay, now when we change the deployment target, basically some changes occur, minimal changes occur here in the development part, and most of the changes occur in the dot application, in this dot application. Okay, so we have this certain configurations which get changed so that our code becomes compatible to be deployed on the cloud container. Okay, so that means we are Tibco is mitigating that problem for us. That is, we can deploy cross-platform, okay, without having to repeat that in the development steps all over again, right? But we have
Yes,
certain concerns.
yes.
Yeah, go on. Yes, Arthur, you were saying something? Okay, I think Arthur lost his audio. Okay, so yeah, what I was saying was Tibco mitigates at least this migration effort for us, but that thing itself is not a single single turnkey type of solution. Okay, because with these changes, see, if say I show you this activity group list. Okay, so this is the list which is supported for container. Okay, if we count, so it has 13 activity groups. Okay, if we change it back to AppSpace, so here we have 14 groups. Okay, which means that sorry, that all activity palettes which is supported in AppSpace, they are not supported in container. Okay, and also the same thing happens when we shift to Tibco Cloud. So that means TCP is not supported in the container deployment target. Okay, and TCP and RV both are not supported when we go to Tibco Cloud. So that means if we have those types of activities which are not supported in a single platform, in a particular platform, we may have to update those activities or replace them with similar activities. For example, if RV activities are not supported, we have to replace them maybe with our JMS activities or with other messaging tools like say Kafka or anything. Okay, so that is how we have to make minimum changes to, I would not say no changes, but minimal changes on the development part to migrate from one deployment target to another. Okay, so this is one thing that Tibco with that composite product Tibco introduced. And the other point that I was mentioning, I didn't mention explicitly, but when I mentioned that when we were working on Tibco Cloud, sorry, on Tibco BW6, we have the option of either having a virtual machine created on cloud where we deploy install the Tibco components like AppSpaces, app nodes and deploy there, or we can deploy our applications directly as containers on cloud. Okay, so these two are basically two different cloud concepts. Okay, so we can see here we have the PaaS, which means the platform as a service. Okay, which is like cloud services come in two options. One is the PaaS, which is a platform as a service, which means that that cloud is basically providing you a platform that is giving you a VM, and in that virtual machine you can install anything. You can install Java, you can install .NET, you can install Tibco, anything, whatever you want, and it will work just as a like local server. Okay, or you can use that other option, which is the IaaS basically. IaaS is basically software as a service. Okay, so SaaS basically offers like your software would be running on the cloud as a container, as a like independent container. Okay, so container is like a generic, like say black box for the cloud platform. So a cloud platform knows how to run a container, and inside the container, whatever application is there, it will run without the cloud platform knowing what is inside. That means, suppose say like if you like consider the concept of a cargo ship. Okay, so cargo ship has a lot of containers loaded on that. So cargo ship knows how to transport containers, right? But they do not know what the containers contain. Some containers may contain cars, some may contain heavy machinery, something, things like that, right? So here also the same thing applies. So when we use the IaaS or SaaS functionality of the cloud platform, it means that we are like packaging our application, whichever technology that may be built on, inside like opaque containers, and giving those containers to the Tibco cloud to run. Okay. So these are the two options that we get for like from the cloud platforms, and based on that we have this deployment targets created. Okay. So from 6.5 onwards, and in the BWCE from 2.5 version onwards, we have this option or this composite deployment target. Okay. So if I open the C platform as well, you would see that we will have the same thing there. There is a C 2.6.0. So here also we'll see like we have the same thing, the same like format, and we can change the deployment target here as well. Okay. Yeah, and by default, since it's a C, the container will be checked. Okay, in 6 app space was checked. Okay, but we can like configure anything, whatever we want. So this is how Tibco is maintaining this composite format. Like once you like start developing in either the 6 or C Studio, you have a code compliant to be deployed in either version, but just by the change of this configuration, right? Now, as easy as it may sound, the deployment is not the same. Okay. So what Tibco does is Tibco provides certain utilities which are required for TA deployment only with the BW6. Okay. And certain utilities which are required for the C deployment only with the C. Okay. That means for the cloud deployment, if you want, like if you say have license, suppose for like that's a very unlikely scenario, but like let's suppose if say your client has license only for the BW6. Okay. Then even if you like create an application in BW6 with a deployment target as container, you won't be actually able to deploy your code into the cloud. Okay, because for deploying as container, you need the support of something called a base image. Okay, and that base image is available only for the BWCE. Okay, Tibco doesn't provide a base image for BW6. So that means you would need to have a license for BWCE as well. And what you need to do is, after you have completed your development, you change the deployment target to container, you export the code from the BW6 Studio, you export it from here, and you import it into the C Studio, okay, and then generate the year out of it. Okay, so ultimately you are generating the year out of the C Studio, and then after that you are using that base image which Tibco provides to combine with your application and create your application image, right? Only then will you be able to push that image into the cloud platform. Okay, so this is how the like deployment, like the deployment to cloud and like deployment to TA goes conversely, if you are developing in BWCE, you have to do the same thing. So if once your your development is completed in C, you export it from here, import it into the SIG Studio, and then use the utilities. Like we have two utilities here, the BW admin and the BW agent. So those are command line utilities, which are like the central characters in that entire TA architecture. Okay. So those we use to deploy in the SIG, that is in the app space. Okay. So again, like if you have only the C license, you won't be able to deploy in app space. Okay, because those utilities come only with the BW6. So in this case, like in this how like Tibco has maintained the dependency on both the products, and like based on your function, you may need both the licenses. Okay. So here we will cover, like since that is the scenario, we'll cover both these deployment formats. Okay. We'll take up the, like once we are done with the development part of BW6 and C together, we will take up the admin architecture and admin deployment hands-on everything for BW6, that is a TEA. And once we are done with it, we will move on to the cloud deployment. Okay. So any questions till now? Okay, so like I will not bore you with like all these details here. Like these are some of the features that BW6 provides, and we will like go through them, all of them in detail. One of the standout points, like I would like to mention in this slide, is that of the REST implementation. Okay. So the REST is something which is like a very like standard implementation format nowadays, since we are deploying on cloud. So REST services, like BW5 was not built for REST services; it was built for SOAP services. So REST services in BW6, they have like, if you in BW5, if you want to implement, they have given you certain plugins. But if anyone has like experience working in those REST plugins for BW5, you would know that like working there is like lot of it's hugely difficult, because like there are various restraints, there are various constraints, which like, and like even if the development is done, your local testing, that becomes a nightmare. So, compared to that, BW6 offers only a few steps of clicking and dragging and dropping, and you can have your interface ready in a minute. Okay, so that's because BW6 is REST native. Okay, that is something like Tibco keeps on mentioning in any Tibco program you attend. Whenever they talk of BW6, they would mention this stuff. So REST native means that like they have REST implemented in 6 itself, so that you do not need any plugins to play with REST APIs. Okay, you can directly create and deploy them and test your services, because REST engine is built inside the Tibco BW engine. Okay, and the good thing is they have also like have one Swagger engine running inside the BW engine, which makes the local testing much more easier. Okay, so you can like deploy, you can like test your BW6 code, sorry, your REST API. Once you have built it, you can locally test it from the Swagger API. Okay, so that engine is also integrated in the studio, so that like you can test it much more easily. Okay, so that is one thing. Other than this, like all these things we will go on in detail. These are the execution parameters, like the designer, and these are like some of the concepts that we will be covering, like the conversations for SOAP service implementation, and we have the REST service implementation as well. So we already talked about this deployment format. This is the format like a TE architecture basically, where as I mentioned, like this BW agent and the BW admin. These utilities are provided only with the BW6 installation. Okay, you do not get that with BWCE, which means you cannot deploy your code directly from C into the TE. Okay. And here, this is for the C part. So as I was mentioning, like we have these 3 deployment targets, and we use the Docker or Cloud Foundry to create the base image. Okay. So this base image is something, again, like this build pack and the base image, that is something Tibco provides only for the C. Okay. So this is in like very in a nutshell, like what we use. Like we have the application archive, that EAR. If we want to deploy on Tibco Cloud, we can directly push it because it is from Tibco to Tibco, so we can directly push it even from the studio itself. If we want to deploy on a generic cloud platform, what we have to do is we have to containerize. This is the containers, and we can use either the Docker or the Cloud Foundry. These are two different technologies, but Docker is a more popular one. We can use either of these to generate the base image or the application image. Sorry. And once you have that application image, we can go and deploy that application, push that container into the AWS, push that image into the AWS, and when the image runs in the cloud platform, it becomes a container. Okay. So this much we will cover in our cloud specific administrations. Okay. So all these steps we'll cover, and in between, since we also need some idea on Docker, we will cover that as well. Okay. So Docker is a free installation. So when we come to that, I will let you know how and where to go and install it. Okay. So with that, I would end the session. Yeah, I would stop whatever I was presenting. So now it's open for you to whatever questions you have. Please feel free to ask.
So I have one question.
Sure.
You talked about the Swagger engine. So
Right.
I did not understand that part. So like uh, like in the tool itself, like how it actually helps. So for example, I built an REST API service, okay,
Right.
using there some provided. So there should be some in BW6. So
Correct.
in testing, like how it will help me, like.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. So how it does it, say once you develop this REST API in BW6, you before you giving it to the client, okay, or before deploying, okay, you need to unit test it. Okay. Now there are two ways in which we can unit test a REST service. Suppose you start your application and you test it from say the Postman, okay, which will allow you, which is basically a client for REST API. Okay, that you can do. Another way is since REST, SOAP, the W3 schools is controlling controls all the protocols. In REST, Swagger controls all the protocols. Okay, and Swagger offers a UI as well, a web-based UI, which would allow you to generate the interface. Okay, in a outside of Tibco. That is, it is a open source generic thing, which where you can generate your interface and you can use it to create your interface. Okay, your REST API. So if you have created your REST API in BW, what we do is we have certain commands in the studio, which we run, and once we have that, we get certain endpoints. Okay, so when suppose your application is running, your local application with the REST API that is running, so we use that endpoint that we got using that lres doc, that is basically one OSGI command that we run in the studio. So once we run that, once we get the endpoint, we can run it from the browser. So the browser will open a page where you will see the interface for the REST API which is running in your local code. Okay. So without involving any third-party tools like Postman, you can directly put in the values there, and you can see if your code is hitting and you are getting the expected response. Okay. So the testing becomes much easier when you have the Swagger UI setup. Okay, and that is possible because the Swagger engine is running inside the BW engine. Okay, and it gets activated whenever there is a REST API running. Was it clear, or you need certain
Yeah,
more
no.
clarification?
I understood. So
Okay,
there is some
okay.
Swagger file is generated and then something like that.
Not file,
Okay,
yeah, but yeah, similar. We have a UI getting generated. Okay, so
okay,
don't worry.
understood.
In the class,
Like
we will
we will run certain command and we will get the endpoint
exactly
and then we can just open and then.
from the browser. Yes, we will get a UI which we can use to hit the REST API.
So another question, sorry, but you in the picture
Sure,
you
go on, go
showed
on, go on.
about a Tibco mastery. So since
Right.
now everybody is like the very reason that MuleSoft captured the market by storm because
Mhm.
they were like led by API,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So for example, in
Mhm.
BW6, like there was a picture you showed, there was a Tibco mastery. So
Correct. Yes.
what is that, and like are we like, yeah, this one.
Yes. I understood. Okay, so
So
first
it
of all,
says
like
that
Mashery is, yeah, I
yeah,
understand
yeah.
that part. Yeah, that is something question I usually get. So Mashery is again a licensed product. I do not have that Mashery license with me. Like I do have the other licenses, but not Mashery. But Mashery, what it does is basically it's a configuration platform. Okay. So what is like how it does it? Like it basically is a API gateway. Okay. Like we have the other like say APG, which is a Google's API gateway. So what it does is like it like allows entry. Like suppose say configure if you think of a scenario where you receive requests from external. Okay. So you cannot allow all the requests to come into your API. You need to filter out those requests, or like there are some if there are some security protocols to be followed that has to be created. Or suppose say like more use case like more valid use case is the load balancing. So they say you are like deploying say on 8 pods, okay, 8 instances of your application API is running. Now, based on whichever API is free, your application, your like request should go to that particular API. Okay, but for the client which is sending the request, that client only has one IP. That IP is not of your service. It doesn't hit your service directly. It hits the API gateway. So the API gateway, once that those authentications are done and API gateway is satisfied that the request is authentic, it will then check on its end which of the like existing pods or existing instances that is free and up and running and who should be able to process the request. So it will automatically adjust that and send the request to that particular IP. Okay. So those sort of things are created or like configured in the API gateway. But at the back end of the API gateway is the API. So in BW6 or C, we are going to create that API. Okay. Mashery is the configuration product. It's so much in demand because like it is like one of the like most used API gateway. Okay, apart from APG. But that like we like having only the Mashery is not enough because you have to have the corresponding APIs created in the backend, and that we are going to do using BW6. But Mashery, since I do not have that like license, I won't be able to configure and show you. But maybe like I can give you some documentation on how to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, understood, understood. I know about
Okay.
APG. So
Hmm.
are we going to configure our like expose our APIs like REST API? For example, I built some REST solution, okay,
Hmm.
and I want to
Hmm.
expose to the third party via
Right.
APG for the security reason, and then of
Hmm.
course there are other factors as well. So are
Right.
we going to configure APG as well? Like, do we have such use case included?
APG again, like you, if you say, like, see, that is like this is something which is outside of Tibco. So based on demand, like if you require it, then I would try to have like see if I can configure it. Like it's not done yet. If you need it, I will try to configure it, and if that is like I will try my best. If not possible, then I will like resort to documentation. But in the first place, I will try to recreate that. Okay. But I need
Mm-hmm.
some little bit of time for that.
Yeah, no, no, that is understood. Like it just because I'm thinking from the 360 perspective because these are
Right.
the quite
Right.
standard. So
Right.
I understand that you have timing and everything. Okay. So in case I
Yeah.
want to
But
try at my end and I need your help, like you can help me, right?
definitely. Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
that will definitely I will try to. That's not a problem.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So thank you.
Yeah,
I'll stop here. You answered my questions very well. So thank you.
yeah. Okay. So others also like please feel free to like ask anything you want. And like I think Kiranmai was pinging everybody. So if you have like there was certain message like she was asking you. So if you have that response, please like, respond to her in the chat. Okay. Okay. So any other questions? So like financials and all like that I won't be able to answer because like that is something which Visualpath takes care of. So you have to talk to them. Apart from that, regarding the course, if anything else, please feel free to ask. Okay. And also like if you like feel something like after today's course, if you feel something you need to talk to me again and like understand something or decide on something, you can like do that. Ask. We can connect with Visualpath and they would connect you to me. Okay. So that also won't be a problem. Okay. Uh, If nothing else, then I think we can end for today. Thank you for joining, guys. And as I mentioned, like if you have any further doubts, feel free to connect with Visualpath, and they would connect you to me. Okay.